In San Diego, Frank Emmig's furniture shop imported and sold guitars from Mexico, and as the folk scene started to boom in the late 50s, early 60s, the shop became the place for local musicians to hang out. They would set up their instruments amongst the furniture and play and teach late into the night. But the issue was the furniture shop was also the home of the Emmigs, specifically the kitchen of Mrs. Emmig. She had had enough of the musicians. She booted them all out of her home. Well, two of the musicians, Ed Douglas and Larry Murray, decided to open up their own shop, a place where musicians could play and teach. A portion of the shop had a dirt floor. The two had to take their inventory home with them after closing because the shop wasn't exactly secure, but it soon became the place to hang out and play. Ed and Larry also got Yuri Zeltins to be a partner in the shop. Yuri's was from Latvia originally. He built, repaired, and restored classical and flamenco guitars, eventually earning a reputation as one of the best restorers in the United States of those types of instruments. They called the shop the Blue Guitar. Now, two young players, Kenny Wirtz and Gary Carr, regularly played on the stage as a banjo and guitar folk duo in the shop. Co-owner Ed Douglas decided to join Kenny and Gary on upright bass, as did Larry, the other co-owner, on dobro, and they called themselves the Scottsville Squirrel Barkers. Now, Ed Douglas came up with this odd name. Scottsville is a reference to his hometown of Scottsville, Kentucky, and there's a hunting method, likely more a tall tale, that you shoot just above a squirrel sitting on a tree. The bullet strikes the bark of the tree, stunning the squirrel, ensuring that the squirrel and the squirrel meat doesn't get damaged by the bullet. They called it barking a squirrel, or squirrel barkers. The Scottsville Squirrel Barkers became the house band of the Blue Guitar Shop. Eventually, a young mandolin player would join the band and it would become a five-piece, and they would perform a few local festivals and play around California, including actually Disneyland at Anaheim. Well, at one point they felt a record would really help them in promoting their music. They all piled into a four-door Chevy Corvair and drove to Los Angeles, phoning every recording company in the phone book asking if they could record in their studio. Well, Crown Records agreed to listen to a rough audition tape, then agreed to record them the following week if they could come back into Los Angeles. The young mandolin player, he was only 16 at the time. He had to lie about his age when they signed the contract. And the 4-hour recording session produced 10 songs, totaling 18 minutes of music. Crown Records insisted all the songs be in the public domain so there would be no issues with copyright, and the album was titled Bluegrass Favorites by the Scottsville Squirrel Barkers. The vinyl was poor quality and the record would wear out quickly if played too often, and the band members swore the recording was sped up. But they had a record to sell. Now, unfortunately, in 1963, Kenny and Gary joined the Air Force. So for the remainder of their gigs, the band got another banjo player that hung out at the Blue Guitar, Bernie Leadon, to play banjo. Another local musician, Doug Jeffords, would become the guitar player. And once those shows were finished, the band broke up. Bernie Leadon and Larry Murray played for a while as the band Hearts and Flowers, and Bernie would go on to form the country rock band The Eagles. Kenny Wirtz went on to play with the Flying Burrito Brothers, was also a member of Country Gazette. The young mandolin player went on to join another local bluegrass band, the Golden State Boys, with the Gosden Brothers and Don Parmley on banjo. They would change the name of the band to the last name of the young mandolin player, the Hillman. The one Gosden brother, Vern, well, he became a pretty big country musician. Don Parmley, the banjo player, he would form the Bluegrass Cardinals, and the young mandolin player is none other than Chris Hillman. He would go on to play bass with the Byrds, be a member of the Flying Burrito Brothers, be a good friend of Graham Parsons, become a solo artist. He was also part of the country group, the Desert Rose Band. And that's how Chris Hillman got his start in bluegrass.
Sometimes peaceful and so